It's been a busy past few days here on the Syracuse campus, and here to talk about it is Neil Adler from inside the Loud House, because Eddie Lampkin, now a member of Syracuse, Malik Brown out the door. What is next for Syracuse basketball?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Locked On Syracuse podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Jackson Holzer, your team every day. And today we're joined by Neil Adler from inside the Loud House to break down all the recent news here on the Syracuse campus, specifically what is going on with everyone leaving the men's basketball team, everyone coming in now to the men's basketball team. So much to break down. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, Neil. So thank you for coming on again.
Of course.
What are your thoughts on Eddie Lampkin officially transferring to Syracuse?
I would say that from a Syracuse fan perspective, it was a little bit of a sigh of relief, I guess, to use a cliche, given that since the portal opened up on 2 Mondays ago, they've seen at least 5 guys enter. Who knows? That could change, minute to minute, day to day. And given a couple of those guys, including Malik Brown earlier this week, are in the front court, I would say that getting a experienced center who's got 1 season left of eligibility, played in the NCAA tournament this year, 2 games with Colorado. It was much needed. Lampkin is a solid player. He's a physical player. And I think having him along with presumably Naheem McLeod coming back and being fully healthy, I think that gives them a nice 1-2 punch. And then you've got William Patterson to back both of those guys up. So I think that solidifies the front court, at least from the center spot, and with other guys having left, there's multiple open scholarships available, and Syracuse coaches will continue to mine the portal for other guys, likely a point guard, maybe a wing player, but getting Lampkin was big.
Yeah, it certainly was big. And I want to touch on something you said in the beginning there, which was, I think a lot of fans were anxious about the transfer portal because they declined the NIT. Mm-hmm. And their reasoning, part of it is because they want to hit the transfer portal, right? You want to hit it early. And then all the news was everyone leaving. Mm-hmm. And they weren't getting anyone. So it was almost to your point, just a breath of fresh air. Just right. Like, all right, someone's in the door. I think this fills a need. Mm-hmm. Like they needed a proven starting big man. Mm-hmm. I think the Naheem McLeod experiment from last year, it didn't really work. He's Naheem McLeod. He's a backup center. He can play really good defense, and he's a nice change of pace from Eddie Lampkin. Eddie Lampkin's a good offensive player. He can get rebounds as well, both on the offensive and defensive end, but he's not a good defender. Mm-hmm. He can't defend. Naheem McLeod can defend. Mm-hmm. I think it would be really cool at some points to see Lampkin and McLeod on the court at the same time, because you could, in theory, try it, especially earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. Neil, how do you see Lampkin fitting in for Syracuse?
Well, to your first point before we get into Eddie, what I would say about the portal is it's a marathon, not a sprint. And, it opened up on March 18th. And I think a big reason why Syracuse opted out of the NIT, assuming they would have gotten invited, which I think they would have, is because they knew multiple guys were going to announce they were hitting the portal immediately. And with, other guys being injured and Williams having been dismissed, they wouldn't really have been able to field a healthy team, a realistic team with, more than 6 guys. So, while we all would have liked to seen them play in some kind of postseason, I think the NIT opt-out was understandable. And the other thing I would say about that is, Syracuse saw the news come out about multiple guys hitting the portal before they got a guy out of the portal. And so while we all kind of panic and say, what the heck is going on? Let's keep in mind that the portal, this window is open for 45 days until May 1st. So, and they have open scholarships and they're going to get more guys, I believe. So, but yes, I think getting Lampkin was huge just from a confidence standpoint to kind of nip in the bud all the quote unquote not so fun news. So in terms of Eddie, I do agree that him and Naheem will complement each other well. Naheem, played 14 games this year before he suffered an unfortunate season-ending injury. He's 7'4" and definitely an imposing force on defense. And Eddie can score and is good on offense. I did find it interesting that at his height and length, he didn't really block a lot of shots this year. So,
no, he only had 5 total.
Was it 5? I mean, it wasn't. Yeah,
blocks aren't everything for defense, but if you're 6'11" and you're blocking 5 shots in 30 games, you are not a good defender. Lampkin is not someone who I'm expecting to be, all ACC defensive team. I'm not even expecting him to make an all conference team to begin with. I just think he's a solid player. Sure. And it's a good start to the portal for Syracuse.
Absolutely.
He's not better than Malik Brown. This is what I tried saying on, when the Eddie Lampkin commitment happened. This is what I did on the podcast. It's about the aggregate.
Right. I agree.
You don't need to find any player that's better than Malik Brown in the portal. They might find one that's better than Malik Brown. But they don't need to. They just need to get a combination of players whose average impact is greater than the ones that they are losing. And I think Lampkin is a solid start to that.
100%. Replacing Malik Brown, quote unquote, is very hard. He was on the all-defensive team. I believe he led the ACC in steals this year per game.
He had the most steals by any center in the conference's history.
Yeah, and obviously he was thrust into the center spot when Naheem went down, and to some extent playing out of position. He's more of a true power forward. But yeah, I agree with you. Trying to replace him, with one guy really isn't the focus. It's what the whole team is going to look like in terms of roster construction. And as I looked at the front court after Eddie committed this morning in a piece. I think Eddie and Naheem complement each other well and provide a nice 1-2 punch. Who's going to start? I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, Naheem was the starting center last year before he got hurt, but Lampkin comes in averaging 10 and 7, something like that.
10 and 7,
and
16 and 6 in the tournament.
Yeah, and sorry for your Florida Gators here, buddy, but he and their 2 NCAA tournament wins or tournament games, went 1-1.
Part of the reason why I wanted Lampkin. He torched
I know
Gators
he had I believe 34 points and 13 boards in those 2 combined games in the NCAA tournament. So he provides good offense, and Naheem can be a force on defense. And, if you look at their season averages, quote unquote, from this past year, you're looking at 2 guys, as a 1-2 punch that, could average maybe 15 points, 11, 12 boards, a couple of blocks more. The blocks more on Naheem's side, but that's credible. Neither of them is Jesse Edwards or Raheem Christmas or whatever, but if they can get decent minutes and be credible at that position, they'll be good in other positions as well. So I think, again, getting Eddie is a good start in terms of bringing guys in out of the portal.
The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet the tourney, MLB, NBA, NHL, and so much more. And hey, we're down to the Final Four right now. UConn taking on Alabama. Is that an upset? Alabama, high-octane offense against the juggernaut Huskies. Also, Purdue facing NC State. Is NC State going to keep this up? And is this really 1983 all over again? Well, with this deal, you can bet either way, and I know I will certainly be cashing in on it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the streaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House, breaking down Eddie Lampkin to Syracuse. Now we're going to transition to the roles and expectations, specifically of the centers that are still on the roster. Eddie Lampkin, of course, is a center. And you mentioned, Neil, that you don't know who's going to start. I kind of have a feeling who's going to start.
You think Eddie's going to start?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a guy that started basically every single game for Colorado.
Sure.
He had 10-7 last season. I don't think he's transferring over here to come on the bench. I don't think so.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I guess the only thing I would say there is playing devil's advocate. Naheem was a starter last year until he got injured. So is he going to be unhappy? I mean, to me, it's not really who starts. It's who's playing in crunch time.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. And, it could be based on matchups, depending on whether they're in a particular game. Autry and his staff, they need, a center that's, more imposing on one end of the floor versus the other. I think they'll both see some time. But yeah, if I had to guess, I would guess Eddie starting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, Eddie played, I believe, 28 minutes a game last year. And
Correct.
Even when Naheem McLeod started,
he
only played about 14
yep.
to 15 minutes, which was a career high for him. So
right.
Even if he's not starting, I mean, he's going to be probably playing a similar role. I do not expect Eddie Lampkin to come out here and play 35 minutes a night. There might be some nights where he does play 35 minutes, especially if it's a game that is more of a shootout.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not Eddie Lampkin's. That's not where he excels best. Play him 25 to 30 minutes. The part of the reason why Naheem McLeod failed is because we thought he could be more than what he was.
Right.
Just play him 10 to 15 minutes.
Sure.
Have him be a presence on the defensive end. Last year, Naheem McLeod averaged 2 blocks a game in 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's pretty solid defensive impact. And people are going to say it's because he's 7'4". Well, sue me. He's 7'4". Let him use it.
He's as tall as he is. That's
he's allowed
just
to
what
use
it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
What are your expectations for Naheem McLeod next season now that Eddie Lampkin is in the fold?
Sure. I think what you're saying is right on point. I would say that, again, just kind of my gut feeling right now, and certainly you have to see how the roster fills out. Although I do think the team probably is fairly well set at the center spot. I would say, look at Eddie to be the starter, 25-ish minutes a game. Naheem, 10 to 15. And I guess the wild card for me is William William Patterson didn't play at all this year. He's more of a developmental, longer-term player. Assumably going to redshirt for this past season. Is he going to see the court at all? I don't know. We'll see. I think he's got some athleticism, but I still don't see him to get a lot of minutes. But then again, if Eddie and or Naheem get into foul trouble, or there God willing injury issues, he could see the floor some. But I would say that Eddie will likely get the most minutes with Naheem next, and then William Patterson is the backup.
I think William Patterson will see the floor at some points next season. Mm-hmm. I just think it's almost disingenuous in recruiting him if you're not going to play him for 2 years.
It all. Right.
You're not going to play him for 2 years. Why did you recruit him to begin with?
Well,
I understand you don't want him to be the backup center going into the season. That I completely get. And you don't turn down Eddie Lampkin if he wants to come to Syracuse. Like, you don't say no to that, even if you think that he can be a backup center. Right. But William Patterson, he's got athleticism. He's over 7 feet tall.
He is. He's 7'2", I believe.
Why? I'm not saying he needs to play every single night, but if hopefully there's not an injury, but you can't. Out of a combination of 60 games between Naheem McLeod and Eddie Lampkin, someone's bound to probably miss one game.
Sure.
And in that case, I can easily see William Patterson having to go on the floor and play, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious to see it because maybe he'll flash. Remember, this is something we haven't really brought up yet. Eddie Lampkin, this is his last year of eligibility. Naheem McLeod, this is his last year of eligibility.
Correct.
So you want to play William Patterson just to see, hey, like, is he good enough?
Is he your center for the future? 100%. These are all wonderful points, and I would agree. It didn't surprise me that Patterson is redshirting this past year. They had 4 centers on the roster, as well as Malik, who obviously played center once Naheem went down. So
four centers. Are you meaning Malik? You're counting him as a center?
No, this past season they had Naheem, they had Patterson, they had Peter Carey, and Hema. So
but Hema didn't really play. But
I'm just saying they were all upperclassmen. Yeah. Well, Carey was a sophomore. They're all more experienced than Patterson coming in as an incoming freshman. So it didn't surprise me. And then you add in Malik Brown. It didn't surprise me that he's redshirting this past season. But I would agree, he's got to get some time because, like you said, Naheem and Lampkin will have exhausted their collegiate eligibility. And, Syracuse is recruiting some guys in 2025, that play power forward / center. But, we got to see if Patterson, is he going to hold down that spot the season after next? We'll see. But and plus, again, knock on wood, no injuries, but foul trouble. Syracuse is blowing out teams. Syracuse is getting blown out by teams. He's going to get some spot time here and there, I think.
Yep, I think we're both in agreement on that. Yeah. Real quick before we transition to the portal, how much better do you think the center room is now compared to last season?
Oof, that's a great question. Well, if you're including Malik Brown in the center position because he was thrust into that when Naheem went down, it's tough. It's tough to say next season's center group is quote unquote better or significantly better, because even though Malik is undersized and is more of a power forward, he still had a really good year. Again, Peter Carey, Munir Hema barely played. So if you put Malik to the side and then you look at, okay, they've got Naheem and Lampkin and then Patterson backing them up, I think it's just as good. I think it's on paper, I think it could be better, again, because assuming Naheem's fully healthy and his strengths on the defensive side and Lampkin's strengths on the offensive side, if they combine for, again, like 15 and 12 and a couple of blocks, I think it could be quote unquote better. Again, putting Malik Brown to the side is more of a power forward. I don't think the center spot is going to be the biggest strength of the team next year, but I think it could be solid. I think it could be credible. I think they could hold their own. And, one thing I think you would probably agree with, we saw with Malik, is even though he's so good on the defensive end with steals and deflections and just his instincts, when he goes up against guys that are 30 or 40 pounds heavier than him, or just stronger, but not because Malik isn't strong, but just, basic human elements.
PJ Hall took him to school.
Yeah, it's too hard of an ask for him. So, Lampkin is what, 265, 255, something.
Well, when I go on College Reference, he's 300.
Okay.
And he looks 300.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let's just say he's got more bulk. So yes. I think, from that standpoint, I think the center group could be solid next year. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you on that. I think the center room is improved. It's not the biggest strength of the team, but it's not going to be a liability.
A glaring weakness.
Like it was
right.
last season.
Right.
Amazon Fire TV is the place I get the top streaming apps and channels for movies, TV, and for watching Syracuse games next season. And of course, the Final Four, which is coming up very soon. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV Stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV Channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV Channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV Channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. We're joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House here, talking about Eddie Lampkin committing to Syracuse, the roles and expectations of the centers currently on the roster, which are Lampkin, Naheem McLeod, and don't forget William Patterson. But now let's shift our focus to the portal in general. Where should Syracuse turn to next? What is their biggest need right now?
Sure.
And let's also, before you answer, let's just assume that, Judah Mintz is leaving and that they're going to find a replacement for Judah. So outside of that.
Okay, so outside of that, because I would say after they got a center, the first thing would be a point guard, because I don't expect Judah to return. I would say after that, probably look on the wing. Look at another forward, hybrid 3/4 that can shoot it. This is assuming Chris Bell comes back, which I haven't been given any indication he's not, but you never know. But let's say assume he comes back, so he's slotted at the 3. Donnie Freeman, just obviously highly rated and all the excitement there would be at the 4, but he is an incoming freshman, so let's just remember that. From a shooting standpoint, their other incoming freshman is Elijah Moore, who we all know can shoot it. Dropped 67 points on his senior night for our Savior Lutheran in New York City. But again, he's an incoming freshman. So to me, I think it would be nice to have another wing player, a 3/4 who can shoot it. I think that would be, a quote unquote need. And with multiple open scholarships, why not? And they, Syracuse has reportedly, reached out, shown interest in a variety of guys, both at the wing, point guard, and obviously center spots. So I would say someone in the forward, not necessarily a power forward per se, more of like maybe a guy that could play the 2, 3, or 4. That would be my next one.
Players that Syracuse has reached out to or that have been somewhat connected to are Malik Mack, Mikhail Brown-Jones, Marlon Stone-Dubar, Jair Davis, Farrell Payne, Dakota Lefew, and Jaquan Carlos. Who there sticks out to you?
Well, again, if we're talking about the point guard spot, Malik Mack to me is definitely one to monitor. I haven't seen anything official yet that Syracuse is in pursuit of him, but that doesn't mean that they're not. And
yeah, I just sorry to cut you off here briefly. We didn't know anything about Lampkin until,
that's true.
24 hours before he committed.
That's true. Syracuse coaches are doing stuff behind the scenes. We see some of this stuff come out about guys they've been in touch with from analysts, etc. But they also I feel like Syracuse coaches like to fly a little bit under the radar as maybe opposed to other schools in terms of this stuff getting out there. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're pursuing Mack. He was the Ivy League Rookie of the Year. I think he averaged 17 points per game. He's one of the top point guards in the portal. He's 1 year ahead of Donnie Freeman, but they played together at St. John's College High School, won a WCAC title 2 years ago, and he played for Team Takeover, which we all know the Syracuse coaching staff has tons of ties to, and they've got current and former players that have played there, now in the past and Donnie into the future. So Max stands out to me. All these guys are intriguing. Carlos, I believe, is another point guard. He's out of Hofstra. But, Freeman is a wing player. I like Mikal Brown-Jones from UNC Greensboro as a forward. Yeah.
He's a good player.
Yeah. And LeFew from St. Mary. All these guys, can score, whether 17, 18, 19 points a game, among the league leaders in scoring in their conferences. Dubar is another guy from Hofstra, that can score. Davis from Delaware, he's a good scorer and rebounder. He didn't shoot well from three this past year, if memory serves correct. But
no, he did. Forgot exactly what it is, but he didn't.
I think it was like 25, 26%, not great. But
not everyone can shoot.
Yeah, no, but all those guys, look good to me. I would take any of them. But I would say in terms of focus, I would say Mac at the point guard spot. And then some of these other guys on the wing, they're all capable guys that have shown that they can score at the mid-major level, and mid-major guys go on to have nice careers at high majors. Look at teams in the tournament the last few years. A lot of their key guys are transfers versus, incoming 5-star freshmen. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure that Syracuse coaches are showing interest in other guys that it just isn't out there. But I would say keep an eye on Mac and keep an eye on guys out on the wing.
If memory serves correct, I believe Dalton Connect was a mid-major transfer.
Yep.
So, there's that
first team All-American.
Yeah. There's a concern out there. Like you're a mid-major player. Like, how are you going to translate into the Power 6, which now next year is going to be the Power 5?
Right.
How do you translate it? And I'm like, talent is talent. If they're dominating the Ivy or they're dominating another conference, sure, they might not come in and be, Dalton Connect and be first team All-American at a Power 5 school.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they can't be an impactful player. Malik Mack and Mikal Brown-Jones are top 25 transfers available, and
Agreed.
that includes everyone that's out there from the Power 5. So very, very intriguing names for sure. And like I said, like we both agree upon, the aggregate, if you can get three of those guys, they have three open scholarship spots available, they are a better team than last year. Period. End of story. They're a better team if they can nab three of those guys. Neil, before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I would say, because as a been putting stuff out there about Syracuse showing interest in this person or that person. I have seen some comments from fellow fans and always respect their opinions, but this kind of line of thinking among some fans, hey, this guy's a mid-major. Why are we going after him? He's not worthy of Syracuse, that kind of stuff. And I would just reiterate that I love Donnie Freeman. I love Elijah Moore. Syracuse is going after some really, really highly ranked guys in 2025 and 2026. But if I had to choose between an incoming freshman or a guy that's played multiple years at a mid-major against solid competition and has shown he can perform at a good level, I would tend to choose the guys that are already in college. So I'm not saying Syracuse is going to stop recruiting at the high school level. They're not, but things have changed with the portal. And I would much rather have some of these veteran guys, mix in some of the incoming freshmen, but absolutely. But let's take guys that have shown they can play at the collegiate level, whether mid-major or not.
Yep. College basketball has certainly changed. It used to be you recruit players, you develop them for 4 years.
Not anymore, buddy.
And then it was John Calipari introducing the one and done
idea
at Kentucky. And now it seems to be find the mid-major transfers and bring them into your program because they're experienced at the college level.
Mm-hmm.
And they tend to be more reliable than freshmen right out of high school. Neil, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, Jackson. Thanks for having me as always.
All right. Take care, everyone.